Okay, it's May 10th, 2021. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Saratoga Springs Public Library Board of Trustees. The first order of business is, as usual, the approval of last meeting's minutes.
I just note there's a typo. The word statistics is incorrect. If you look down the left-hand column of the minutes.
And the version you have was the updated one with Frank's update from this afternoon. Is that?
I don't see that, Terry. Where is that?
It's just before the department reports.
Ah, yes. Okay.
I actually find statistics easier to say, but
Okay, so was there did anybody else see anything else that you thought should be changed?
Okay.
If not, I think we could have a motion to approve the change mentioned by Terry.
I
I
move
seconded. Oh, sorry.
to approve the April minutes.
I seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, brought down to expenditures. Ike, I think you're requesting that we reallocate $15,000 from salaries to professional services at this point.
That is correct. Yes. And and that's not unanticipated. We had talked about the potential need for a reallocation in prior meetings as we were getting more spent in that because of the number of projects we've got going on this year, including the strategic planning.
Yeah, and we're only at like 67% of the salaries budget.
That's correct. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
want a separate motion on that action or?
Yes.
The three. Okay, I would so move.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of reallocating 15,000 from salaries to professional services?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, now we're up to the April prepaid checks. Prepaid checks 68725 to 68726 and 68813 to 68814, totaling $1,126.16. We also have the May warrant checks numbering 68818 to 68902, totaling $414,870.33.
I make a motion to approve those.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is,
I'm sorry, that was Manita and who moved and Katie who seconded, just for the Sue for the record. All right, thank you. Apologize.
next would be the approval of the financial reports. There's the April prepaids and May warrant summary sheet, which we just referenced. Then there's the budget report and the income report. The budget report it reflects the reallocation we just made. Other than that, does anybody have any other questions about where we are to date?
I had a question just about, there's a reference to a construction grant. And I wonder if you could explain that.
In the income report. So the way the construction grants from the state work, we had received a grant. We were approved for a grant for ongoing work to our HVAC systems. And the way the grants work, once you're approved, they pay you up front for 90% of the grant. Once the work is completed, you complete additional paperwork, which goes through the approval process at the state, and then you get the remaining 10% of the grant if you spent it. And so that's what this $30,000 in the construction grant is the remaining 10% of the.
Okay. So it's state money. That's what I didn't understand.
That's correct for prior work that's already been done.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And for the rental income that we have, which is the April and May rent from Sprint.
Correct.
That means that, are we going to get rent every 2 months from them, or is this just a one-time thing?
I think it's just a fluke of timing, Manita. I don't know. It was a little bit of a surprise, but I think it's just because the check for May came on the 30th of April. So I think it came as late as it could come, and it just happened to be a fluke.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. We do anticipate that the Friends will begin paying rent again this month, the month of May, after which is the start of their new fiscal year. They've got their annual meeting coming up on the 24th of this month. And so that rent line may change a little bit as we go forward. Were there any other questions about the budget or income reports?
If there's no other questions, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the financial reports, including the April prepaid, May warrants that we approved, budget report, and our income report.
All in
I
favor?
seconded.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, that passes. Next is the president's report. I have nothing to report today, this evening. Do we have any public comment?
No, I don't believe that we do.
Correspondence and communication.
None.
Then we're up to the director's report.
So we've had a positively eventful last couple of weeks. With all of the numbers are putting us on a good track. So last week, or at the beginning of this month, we were able to resume 7-day-a-week service. So we're now back up to above the minimum standard for library hours for libraries our size as determined by the state. So 7 days a week service. And started last week. Today, we reopened the Henry Street entrance for people to come in and go out that way. And we reinstituted seating. So we have tables and chairs available on all 3 floors of the library. People have been making use of them. They haven't all been full, but there have been people sitting on all 3 floors of the library throughout the day. So we think that's a positive sign. We do have them spaced safely apart. It's just a relative minimum of seating that we have available. But as I say, we think it's a positive direction that we're headed in. And with that said, we're looking at the exception to the open meetings law that allows us to meet virtually rather than in person has been renewed Previously, it was renewed every month. Now they're on a 2-week cycle. This meeting falls under the last approval. We anticipate that they probably will extend that approval to the remainder of May. It's very likely that that will extend through June, but as we get closer to our budget vote, our budget hearing, and our regular meeting in June, it's looking like we may want to anticipate in-person meetings going forward. The budget vote definitely will be in person on the 17th of May. One thing that we have been looking at is that with the expanded size of the board and the number of staff who attend the meetings, especially if we're going to maintain any safe distance from each other, we feel like we've outgrown the boardroom. If there are regularly about 13 people who are attending the meetings, that is about 50%, a little over 50% of the official occupancy of the boardroom. But with that many people, or many more if they're members of the public, it just becomes uncomfortable, and there's no way with that many people to meet in person in the boardroom at a distance of 6 feet apart from each other. So what we're looking at as we go forward is very likely moving these meetings, if they happen in person, to the Dutcher community room.
That makes a lot of sense.
You said the 17th of May for the budget vote is 17th of June, right?
17th of June. Yeah, if I said 17th of May, thank you for correcting me. It is the 17th of June. And
Can you just tell me, are you still using this one, the reopening phase document?
there's one that might have been updated since that one without the color bars in it. So
So
you
which number, what phase are you considered that
So-
you're in right now?
today we moved to phase 5.
Okay,
And so the additional things that got us from phase 4 to phase 5 were the seating, and then there are a few more appointment-based services which we reinstituted today, specifically notary public services and exam proctoring.
great.
And I don't know that there'll be a great need for exam proctoring. It's hard to know how that is going these days, and since everybody's probably operating in a virtual environment, but we do know that there's demand for notary public services. And in fact, since we announced today that we're taking appointments, we've already been making appointments. So I think Sue has at least one on her docket tomorrow. Which I guess leads us to the strategic planning. We talked a little bit, I think, before the meeting started. We still have this very high level draft. We haven't had much of a chance to discuss it internally or with the consultants. We do have meetings on the calendar for next week to touch base with the consultants about how we move forward with that, with the hope that we can have a plan, at least the high level plan, approved by the board to put into place by the 1st of July when the new fiscal year begins. Talked a little bit about the budget vote and trustee election. Petitions are due tomorrow. So far, we know that there are 2 vacancies, Frank's term who's expiring, and then Kristen Dart, who was appointed to a term which is also expiring. As of today, we have 1 petition returned, and that is from Carol Daggs. We are planning on having the vote in person on the 17th of June in the community room from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So it's a little bit later than the hours that we're open regularly at the moment. Sue has been coordinating. She's been in touch with our election inspectors and has taken over the process. And I mentioned in my report here that we have completed our interviews, and it's in Tara's report asking you to approve our appointment of Denise Feltus to the position of senior account clerk. I think probably the best way to go forward is have Sue continue in her role as library district clerk until the end of this fiscal year, and work closely with Denise on as they they both kind of learn the process of how the budget vote and trustee election works, and then officially appoint Denise with the new fiscal year. And with the mechanical improvements project, I mentioned in our previous meetings, we had hoped to maybe wrap this up and the last phase of this in this fiscal year, and that's looking increasingly unlikely as we're about 6 weeks away from that point. We haven't had a chance to go out to bid yet. Before we did, Rick wanted to meet with the architects and engineers to talk about some potential modifications to the plans, which were originally put together about 2 years ago now. And they mainly have to do with kind of long-term accessibility to the equipment. And his suggestions, he did meet with the engineer. The engineer came back with some very preliminary numbers about what those changes might look like, but neither Rick nor I and the architects have had a chance to look at it yet. So at this point, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern. Rick is on vacation this week, so we're in a little bit of a holding pattern until he gets back and then I get back. So, and the parking lot, we have been contacted by an attorney from the city regarding the project that I talked about last month, which had to do with the upgrades to the light bulbs and potentially expanding some wiring for cameras, et cetera there. Nothing more since we've heard from the attorney. They're drafting some kind of agreement. They have to come up with, some internal documentation about the way that they're spending a grant, since a lot of the work that they're looking at is grant funded. So until they complete that work, there's really nothing more we can do on that front. We were surprised to read in Saratoga today that on a sort of semi-related.
Can I just stop you for a second?
Sure.
So I assume that we're planning, once we get the documentation, to hand it off to our attorneys.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah. And the real questions about that, we think if city money or grant money is used to purchase equipment, et cetera, there will be questions about the disposition of that once the term of the grant ends. So it's a pilot project grant. So there'll be also an agreement about who has access to any data that's collected related to the use of the parking lot and the facility. So, but speaking of the parking lot, as I mentioned in my report, and this was kind of late breaking news to us, we haven't heard anything from the city about it, but there was an article that appeared in Saratoga today about the city putting the small parking lot that's on the corner of Henry Street and Caroline Street up for auction, I guess. They intend to sell that. It is 19 spaces. And according to the article, now I haven't been able to talk to anyone from the city yet, the rationale for this move is that they're saying that because they built the new parking structure at the city center, that negates the need for these 19 parking spaces next to the library. So as you can imagine, there's all kinds of questions that arise out of this development. So, and potentially one of them is if the city feels like they no longer have a need for these 19 spaces downtown, then maybe we no longer have the need for the agreement that says that the library-owned spaces need to be made available to the general public rather than only to library users, at least while the library is open, as an example of a potential issue.
Well, yeah, but we haven't really had contact with them about this issue for a while, have we?
That's correct. Yeah, and with this project that we've been talking about with them, with the data that might be gathered about the way the library-owned parking lot is used, part of the idea of that was that it might give us some data to go back to them to say, really, if people are using this lot more for other purposes than visiting the library, that may give us, some standing to say that we'd like to change this agreement.
Would there be interest and possibility of the library purchasing that lot?
I think they would definitely be interested. And speaking of legal issues, to be perfectly honest, I'm not at all certain about the process that we would have to go through to do that. But I think it's definitely worth exploring. My understanding, and it all comes from this short article that appeared in Saratoga Today, is that they actually intend to auction that parcel off. And that's all I know. I don't have,
So probably a developer who has a lot of money is going to.
that's what I'm assuming. And they say that it has a value of about $500,000.
So that sounds almost like under.
Oh,
I'm sure they want it back on the tax roll.
valued. Well, keep in mind also that, you know, most of the people who are on the library, on the city council are up for election and are not running. So we may have a whole new slate come November.
Right. So it is one of those, it's like late breaking news that it took us by surprise and we're not really quite sure what to do with it at this point. But as you can imagine, it has caused quite a stir amongst library staff and amongst library users who struggle to find a place to park when they come downtown. Then a few reminders here. The SAL's annual meeting, if you'd like to attend, in my report, I say it's at 5 p.m. It's actually at 7 p.m. 1 week from tonight. Janet, I don't know if you want to say anything more about that meeting. Janet is on the board of SAL's as well.
Well, they do have a speaker that, I don't know what that sound is, but they are having a speaker. I think Erica Freudenberger is going to be the speaker this time, and I'm sure it'll be really interesting. And we take attendance and see which libraries have the most attendees. So it would be nice if we had at least a couple. It would be really good. But anyway, it shouldn't be too long either. So that's another plus, right?
Yeah, I mean, typically in this format, last year as any model, it is a fairly short meeting in this format, but it's.
Yeah, usually we have the dinner and then it
Right.
runs on, but since there can't be a dinner, you can have your own dinner and
That's right.
watch from home. But anyway, I hope some of you will tune in. You can always go away if you don't like it, but if you were there for the roll call.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
That's at 7?
it's at 7 p.m. on the 17th. Yeah. And it is nice to have representation there, and I think it should be informative.
I think so, yeah.
And then the following Monday on the 24th, the Friends will have their annual meeting, and that is at 5 p.m. And that will be via Zoom. We're actually hosting it using this Zoom channel here for the Friends. And the highlights there will be, they will be electing new officers. And there will be Gina Michelin is putting together a little video with about initiatives of the library that the Friends have supported over the last year, including Staff Development Day, Saratoga Reads, and Summer Reading. And then the last thing in my report, I know it's later on in the agenda as an action item, so I don't know if we want to save it here or if we want to take action on it now, but we have been doing some research about Juneteenth. I know that there was a question about how other libraries are recognizing it, if they are, and there does seem to be no standard. So some libraries are not recognizing it at all. Others are recognizing it as an open paid holiday in the way that we treat Columbus Day with some programmatic element. Others are treating it like a sort of a celebratory paid holiday where it's a paid holiday and the library is closed, sort of like Independence Day. The research that I've been doing about it, and from my experience living in communities that have celebrated it, is that it's more treated like a celebration with barbecues and picnics, parades, etc. So my recommendation, at least this year, since we're getting so close to it, if we're going to reach a decision, and also because it happens on a Saturday this year in a programmatically slow time of year, the end of the school year before summer reading kicks off, my suggestion this year would be for us to be closed and then maybe re-examine it for future years. There are other holidays where we are open some years and closed other years. Veterans Day is an example of that. So this may be a holiday that we want to treat in that fashion as we go forward.
I think that's a great idea. I like that idea.
Which one? To close this year and then
Close
revisit
this
it?
year, and then, we can kind of gauge what's going around, what other libraries are doing, and in the future, think about the entire holiday schedule.
Are we going to do any programming around it or displays or anything like that?
I think we'll definitely do displays and we'll have some explanation of what it is and why we're closed that day. Yeah, so it won't be just out of the blue a day that we're closed. So yes, we will do something to recognize it. Absolutely. So that's it, unless there were other questions about any other questions about my report.
Are we gonna act on the Juneteenth now or save that for later?
What's your pleasure, Frank?
We might as well do it now since we're talking about it now.
Do it now.
I guess the motion is to treat Juneteenth, 2021 as a paid non-working holiday. Is that the proposal?
That's yes, that's correct.
Okay. I move that we, the library treat Juneteenth 2021 as a paid, non-working paid holiday for the library employees, and that we will revisit the issue of Juneteenth in the subsequent months.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I just want to check in with Tara and make sure that that motion covers our bases for, so it's a motion to treat Juneteenth similarly to our other paid holidays.
Yes, non-working paid
All
holidays.
right, all right.
You want to talk, do you want to get Tara's feedback?
Do you think that covers it, Tara? Not to put you on the spot, but I just,
So
Well,
I
she-
mean, it will just, in our employee handbook, we have a list of holidays.
right.
And there's reference that they're paid for full-time employees. And so this will just be added to that.
Added to that list, right, for this year.
To amend, and to amend the employee handbook, I guess. Is that,
There you go, to amend the employee handbook to add for 2021 to add Juneteenth to the list of holidays.
Okay.
okay. Okay, where are we up to? Statistics?
So we're up to youth statistics. I don't know if there are any questions about anything that I provided for you here. I did ask, since Katie asked the question last month that I wasn't 100% certain how to answer, for Gina to provide some definitions to some of these things in the social media report. So I hope that was useful, like definitions of what a fan or a follower, an engagement, impression, etc.
Any questions about that?
I had a question relating to the Zoom reports.
Yes.
Um, and we might want to hold off until we get to the director's reports, but I just happened to notice that the figures for some of these programs don't jibe with the figures given in the director's report. For instance, for the Alaska, the Last Frontier program, I think it says, well, actually it's listed twice. I guess it was given 2 different times.
And it may have been given twice.
Yeah.
Yes, yep.
So the total participants there would come to 57, I think. And in the director's report, the audience is listed as 48. I just wondered if something different is being counted there, or
Are you referring to a department report, Terry?
yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm comparing the department report to the usage report.
Okay.
So the usage report is generated from Zoom itself, and so there's nothing in the director's report beyond. So I'm not sure what you mean when you say in the director's report.
I think he means department report.
If you mean in the
I
department.
mean, department's report,
Okay,
sorry.
okay, all
Yeah,
right.
excuse me.
Do you want me to weigh in on that, Ike?
Sure.
Sure, thanks, Jen.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers in the adult services report are from the staff that that hosted the program. So it's my understanding that that's how many people they noted attended in the room. So I'm not sure what the discrepancy is if Zoom is counting it differently. Because that's how we get our numbers, how many people are actually invited into the program once the program starts.
Okay. I know sometimes Zoom, I don't know if these are programs that people register for. So it could be that people, that the usage report gives the registration numbers, and that's not the actual number of people who show up.
Yeah, we might have to look into that because I'm not sure where the discrepancy is coming from either.
Okay, well, it's not a complaint, just a question.
Right.
I was wondering what was being tracked and why the numbers are different.
And it may also be the case, and I don't know the answer to your question, Jerry, but I'm assuming that Zoom is counting as an attendee anybody who shows up in the meeting. And staff may be subtracting staff members who are there pushing buttons and controlling things, for example, or other people who are participating in the program rather than presenting it. So that may explain some of the discrepancy there.
Does anybody else have any question about that? If not, I think we can go right to the department reports. Jennifer Ferris.
Hi. I've got nothing to add to the report at this time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
I would note that you're going to that sustainability roundtable program. That sounds kind of interesting. Glad to hear you're going to that.
Thank you. I'm trying to stay active nationwide.
That's cool. You know, and one of the things that I neglected to mention in our reopening status is that along with reopening the Henry door, et cetera, we did stop the practice of quarantining library returns. So that has had a little bit of an impact on, I would say more than a little bit of an impact, a definite impact on the workflow in the circulation department as they are checking things in as they're returned now. So it's sort of relearning how to do something that you knew how to do a year and a half ago. But it's definitely had an impact on the workflow.
A return to normalcy, or some of it.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Is Laura here?
Laura is here, yep.
Okay, I don't have anything to add to my report. I hope you have a chance to go to the websites and see some of our story times and everything. They worked out really well. I guess the only thing I really would like to add is that we've all been enjoying the Ryan Dowd presentations. And it would be really cool if we could be able to see them next year too. A lot of good insights into problems that we've had here in the library. If anybody has any questions about anything, feel free to ask.
And the Ryan Dow training, the homeless,
right.
Homeless Training Institute is actually one of the initiatives that the Friends of the Library supported for us last year, our membership. And the other big thing that's happening in youth services that some of you saw as we were waiting to get the meeting started was that we have 13 brand new baby chicks which hatched in the last couple of days down in the children's room.
Thank you, Laura. Jano?
Hi, yeah, I don't have too much either, other than a couple of things I just wanted to call out. And that was, I think when maybe one of our board members can weigh in at what she thought, but our cooking classes, our online cooking classes seem to be a big hit. And so the woman that's been doing that for us for adult services this past time made Tanzanian curry with her husband. And that was a lot of fun. And we recently did a dal and roti workshop. So it's been a lot of fun just kind of cooking together and having the community members join in and cook along with us if they want to. So anyway, that's just been fun. And the other thing I did want to mention, because I don't know if Lori said a whole lot about it in here, she mentioned it briefly, was that she got a nice write-up for the Lattimore Circle program in the Post-Star in the front page. So if you haven't seen that yet, you may want to check it out. And I know she's really excited about it. And it was just nice to get that kind of publicity. Yeah, but other than that, I didn't have anything else. Just wanted to highlight a couple of those things.
And I did want to say congratulations to Jen on the grant that she received from Saratoga Arts for this collaboration with the Create Community Studios.
Thank you. Yes, we're excited about it. And we actually have a Skidmore's MDocs programs is doing a pitch night tomorrow night. So Julie and I and Heather are doing that with them in the hopes of getting some more community partners and collaborators to help with the project too. So that's exciting.
That's wonderful. That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tara?
Before I dive into my report, I actually just wanted to share some statistics with you on that Librarian's Guide to Homelessness training that Laura and Ike were mentioning. And this could be potential fodder for the presentation or the information being put together by us to share at the board, the friends, with the friends. But in any case, 22 sessions that are available on the training platform have been accessed by our staff over 8,400 times since September. An average of 22 people have enrolled in the sessions, 17 on average have completed them. The highest enrollment, the highest number of employees that we have that have enrolled in any one of those sessions has been 53, and 40 have completed that particular session. A total of 68 different employees have actually registered at the platform. We each have our own kind of learning portal. Of those 68 employees, again, an average of 7 courses have been completed. So this doesn't even include the live trainings that happen once a month that subsequently get archived to the platform. I've asked the Dowds for statistics on those because the ones that we've had recently have been particularly relevant and timely, and just been getting a continuous positive feedback from people like Laura and other employees on the value of this training, not just for their work here, but just also just for life in general. So I just wanted to give that additional plug. So on to my report. As far as staffing goes, a formal request to appoint Denise Feltis to the position of Senior Account Clerk. This would be retroactive to last week, the beginning of the current pay period, May 2nd, 2021.
To May 2nd? So, yeah.
Yes.
All right, I make a motion that we appoint Denise Feltes as Senior Account Clerk effective May 2nd, 2021.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. In other staffing news, we are making an imminent offer to a part-time cleaner, and we hope to have that person on board as of next week. Building maintenance worker, we're scheduling interviews for later this week and hope to have someone on board shortly thereafter. We've also just gotten the most recent eligible list established by the Civil Service Commission last week for Librarian 1, 2, and 3. So we've asked Civil Service to canvass the Librarian 3 lists so that we can move forward with filling the vacancy that exists in youth services for a department head. So just giving you the update there. Another request is for approval of the update to the library clerk position specification. So as you'll remember from last month, we're working our way through the 20-odd position specs that we use here at the library. The next most outdated one, I guess you could say, is the one for library clerk. So last month it was Shelver. As with Shelver, the library clerk one hasn't been touched since the mid-90s. And we've tried to make this particular spec consistent with specs that exist for senior library clerk, and also along the same pattern lines as the librarian specs, and that we're breaking things out by functional unit of the library. While a clerk is a clerk is a clerk, there are specific duties performed by different clerks in different functional units of the library. So we wanted to be able to capture those unique duties and did that with this update. Solicited input from the different supervisors of clerks in different areas of the library, and they in turn conferred with their clerks about the duties that they're actually performing. So as with last month, the original text, and there's not much of that, is in black or red strike through. The new text, the proposed, is in green. Another rationale for making this update as we move toward more community outreach and hopeful use of the outreach van, that there is language included here about if the incumbent is to drive as part of library business, the necessity around having a license. So that language was also added to this spec, consistent with the vehicle use policy that the library put into place back in July of 2019, where we state that anyone who is designated as driving for the library will have such duty added to their position description. And that also then begs the need for information on license. And that language came as a result of conferring with civil service directly. So request for approval of the updated spec. And once you've approved it, hopefully it will then again go to the Civil Service Commission. They typically meet the last Wednesday of each month before it is formally approved at that level.
I had one question. And that is, I noticed that the language says that they have to maintain such license during for the duration of the employment. I was thinking, is there any obligation for them to report any change in their licensing status? Such
So I
as,
believe our vehicle use policy does address that. And yes, there is a certain responsibility on the behalf of the employee to make such report to us. But the additional thing, Frank, that the library does is we participate in the license event notification system, or LENS, through New York State. When each individual employee that has been designated to drive for the library gets added to the LENS database by us, and Ike right now is the master of that portal for the library. we enter in information for each individual employee. And by doing that, we're in turn notified anytime an employee has an infraction or some other kind of offense, I guess, that would affect their driving record. So we enter in their information into this database so that we can also be notified should anything happen.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you.
Tara, I just want to be clear on what we're being asked to vote on. It sounds like there's the driver description, which is being added to several positions.
So this is the first of a two-part approval request. So the very first thing is just approving this library clerk spec. And this library clerk spec includes, I just wanted to kind of point it out as along with all the other updates, it does just also include the bit about driving. And oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify too, because it's been a question that's come up internally. The position spec is intended to be an all-encompassing sort of broad view picture of what any clerk might do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that each and every clerk will do all of the things that are delineated here. So where there might be concern about, is having, a driving requirement or a license requirement for a position that is not likely to be doing outreach going to prevent someone from being hired or even applying for the position. My response is that when we go to hire for a specific need, this position spec is rarely used in its entirety. This is, again, sort of the big all-encompassing sort of picture. When we go to hire for a specific need, I usually whittle it down. I focus on what's needed. I try to use simpler language, and I don't typically use this entire spec. So I just wanted to sort of make that clarification too.
So now we're just dealing with the library clerk description, and are we going to have a separate action dealing with the driver description being added? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
I move that we approve the library clerk.
The library
Is outlined.
bathrooms and computing areas are now closed. Please take any items you wish to borrow to the checkout desk at this time. No items will be checked out after the library closes. The library will reopen tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
This has not been rehearsed. It's coming to you live.
I was really confused. Okay, so did you hear that I made that motion, Tara?
I did not, sorry, but I'm going to assume that you made the motion. I don't know if was it seconded?
I second.
Okay.
This is for the library clerk spec.
Yes.
Okay. All in
Excuse
favor?
me, can you please say again who's first and then who's second?
I did the first and Terry,
Okay,
Terry did the second.
I did the
And
second.
that was just for the library clerk description as outlined here by Tara.
Update.
okay, thank you, Katie.
All right. Thanks, Sue.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And then
And the second-
Tara, should I make a second one to add the driving language?
So then my second request to you for approval is that for, and I didn't want to inundate you with 20 more pages of position specs. So I figured the easiest way to do it is to just request approval for the duty of, quote, operates a vehicle for library purposes, and a special requirement of that language, if required to drive a library-owned or leased vehicle, must possess a valid New York State driver's license, defined as a license which is not conditional, temporary, restricted, or suspended at the time of appointment, and maintain such license for the duration of employment to the below listed specifications. Again, these specs that I've listed, building maintenance worker, community relations coordinator, librarian 1, 2, and 3, library assistant, library director 3, principal library clerk, senior library clerk, working supervisor. These were the positions that the team that has been discussing plans for outreach have, with Ike's input, identified as ones that could potentially be involved in outreach and therefore could potentially be driving the library vehicle. So for that reason, we wanted to make sure that at a minimum for right now that we add in this language. The position specs for each of these positions are in various states of being updated. So additional updates will come, but they will be presented to you in the same way that I've been presenting for, like, for instance, library clerk. But for the right now, just asking for approval for adding the duty and the special requirement language to those 10 different specs.
So I move that we add that language to those specific position. How's that? Is that enough?
Yes.
Okay.
As reflected in Tara's report.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Great. Thank you. And that is all.
Thank you, Tara. Ike, I think that concludes our business this evening. Is that correct?
It does, yes.
Okay, so we are adjourned.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.